in November 2021 warned Nigerian government against financing deficits by borrowing from the CBN through the Ways and Means advances, saying this puts fiscal pressures on countries' expenditure. Now let's get talking now. The availability of adequate infrastructure facilities is no doubt imperative for the overall economic development of any country. Like many sub-African countries, Nigeria has huge infrastructure deficits, a challenge that is often blamed for its poor economic performance and low job capacity. With its stock of estimated about 20% of gross domestic product, Nigeria's infrastructure stock is still far cry from the 70% of GDP internationally recommended. Hence, the 2014 National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan estimates a yearly investment of $100 billion, or a total spending outlay of $3 trillion over 30 years to bridge the country's infrastructure gap. Let's get talking. Look at this challenge and how can we fund it. I'm being joined live in the studio by the Managing Director of Africa Plus Partners, Mr. Adeniran Ajakaiye. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the show. It's your first time on the show. Absolutely. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Tolu. It's nice to meet you.
Yes.
And I'm glad to be here.
All right, thank you. A lot of talks about infrastructure, but first, I would like to know what you do and the scope of your operations in terms of infrastructure financing.
Oh, thank you very much, Tolu. Africa Plus Partner, to the average avid investor or international emerging market investor, is a value investor that catalyzes development through building sustainable, carbon-positive infrastructure asset businesses. So essentially, the company was formed. There are four things, that is loaded. There are four things you need to know about that. Value investor. We give value back to our investors. Catalyze development. Anywhere we put our money or we put investors' money, it must lead to increased growth and development of that sector or that area. Number three, we do sustainable investment. Not by default, but by the mindset of the founders that, look, we should try to give back to the economy, to the world, to the climate. We shouldn't just be taking and just investing and making money. So we do sustainable development and carbon positive infrastructure businesses. So all our investments are carbon positive. Just 2 days ago, we were listed on the stock exchange.
Yes, 20.5 billion naira.
Correct.
Carbon mitigation fund on the NGX.
Thank you. So that fund is a proof of concept. The company was established 7 years ago. The idea behind that fund is to show to the public and to invest in public that you can actually bring PFA money into infrastructure. So majority of the funders or the investors in that fund one were literally PFA. Your PFA, I'm very sure, might be one of the investors. So theoretically, the whole of Nigeria and Nigerian populace, through the vehicle we've created, are in one way or the other investing in infrastructure. And the assets we've invested in are carbon positive assets. What do I mean? They tend to reduce carbon emission. Nigeria, in Africa, we're not saying we're going to net zero. We're saying carbon positive. Exactly what that means is essentially try to reduce your footprint in the carbon space. Africa is dealt a wrong hand. They're saying we should do net zero. Net zero does not work for Africa. It's carbon positive that we can do. Just try to reduce it. 4 of my investment. The first one is gas CNG. The first one is a student housing project, whereby we also observe the ESG factors in all our deal evaluation process. We build high quality SDG, high quality, which is education, good quality education, one of the 17 SDG goals, good quality education. We built a state-of-the-art hostel project in Calabar with government. And these are things that you take off the book of the government through private sector money and channelizing this aggregated funds into developing infrastructure for government. That's one project. The other project we did is reducing diesel generator. We provided an IPP in Asaba for all government establishments in Asaba today, powered by gas power generators, so reciprocating engines. This took out 12,000 diesel generators that they have. Right now, they're all powered on, as I said, carbon positive, not net zero. So this reduces the emissions gradually. The third project we did was ecologic. This is what I call to be a revolution to me, and it really came in at the right time because we bought CNG-powered gas trucks for major conglomerates now in Lagos. We have most of them are clamoring for this. This led to reduction because those trucks are 100% power, not mixed, not hybrid, not like you have 50% diesel. No, it's 100% gas. And the gas commercialization program that the government is trying to promote, converting the CNG and all that to be powered by CNG. This is our own direct, bold initiative to go into this space and ensure that we put our footprint and our statement very solidly on the ground for people to see. We stand behind our ESG program. We stand behind our carbon positive program, and we ensure to continue to do this. So this is the first fund we've done, the one listed 3 days ago. We have other funds. That one is fully deployed. The second fund is a 200 billion program, which we're doing right now. Right now, you alluded to the deficit in the infrastructure gap.
Yeah.
So if you look at what the federal government did now, there's a huge initiative that the Ministry of Works is currently doing called the HDMI. We have 2 of those roads in the HDMI allocated to the fund. We go on the ground and we get our things done without making noise. How are we going to fund these transactions? It's going to come from your money, my money, in the PFAs. This way, if you look at PFAs funds today, it's about 20 trillion. Those 20 trillion and growing at the rate of 20% annually. Those 20 trillion funds, 70% of it are buying government bond. In quote and unquote, government is not going to be the best user of funds eventually. Inefficiencies will arise. You issue out a contract. The contract is spread over 5 years. The budget is allocated for 20% this year. Next year, the contractor comes with a variation. Interest has gone up. The price is going up.
Yeah.
But if you use the private sector, you negotiate properly.
Yes.
You put liquidated damages in your contract. You hold the contractor to the fire and ensure they deliver at the time they specify they're going to deliver because there's penalty on their neck. So things like that are where private sector will do those kind of projects that will cost 10 times at 2 times that cost and faster that cost. Now, the ripple effect is enormous also.
Yes, because I wanted to ask you that what is expected? These funds are much. So how will it impact on Nigerians considering the economic situation that we face at this time?
Thank you so much. Now, take the road, for example. Once you fix a road, Songwater, we have the Lagos-Abeokuta express. Lagos Ota, Abeokuta Road.
Okay.
The one that goes through Lezik all the way to Abeokuta.
Okay, yeah.
It's one of the concessions. That road goes through that that Songwater busy area. Imagine the number of toll and time you spend traveling on that road. Imagine you can do from toll gate in Songo to Ikeja in less than 10 minutes. Just imagine that is possible. Imagine the kind of man hour that you will save. Imagine the time of productivity Nigerians will have if they can travel in the short distance. Number one. 2, the wear and tear on vehicles. The emission, because you are held up on the traffic. The emission that your car emits while waiting in traffic. So those are things that the moment you make the road passable or accessible and free and easy, it impacts people's life. Now, that's one. 2, government will also make money because the money they will have used for those repairs is channeled to other use. We are raising money from other sources to use to fix that money. And these are economically viable projects. So economically viable, government is not needed in economically viable projects. A project in rural area, you're expanding the road, you're doing this, where it's not viable to put any road, investors will not put money where it's not viable. Viability gap funding is essentially where the government is needed the most. But these major roads in cities where you can put all over the world, this is how infrastructure asset is funded through private sector. Pensions want assets like this because it's a kind of sinking fund and continuing annuity for them because you get money every day through tolls and all that. You can make it viable and it impacts people's lives the moment that's on roads. If you go to power, for example, the greatest catalyst to growth in Nigeria, the people have been saying it over time, is power. Fix the power. There are 3 major components of this power, right? We have the generation, the transmission, and the distribution. The generation produces 12,000. The distribution can distribute whatever they get. But the transmission is able to pass 5,000 through that hole. So it's like a pipe. You have 12,000 coming and it's only going through 5,000. If you expand that pipe, the 12,000 goes through, then we'll be sorting out the problem of distribution because the thing is available there. But there are ways you can also fix that middle. All right, through private sector, you can manage. So
it's still being run by government.
Thank you.
And that's been the argument. Many say the transmission end is the weakest end of that.
Thank you. There are ways to also run that. There's managed concession, where you all those lines, because they say it's a security asset. You want to privatize it. You want to take it to the public. Yeah, no problem. Managed concession, where you share that asset you to some very high strategic ones that you need to expand. For example, they only have, let's say, I'm giving this as an example, they only have 1 billion naira to do transmission this year. It's in the budget. And you're going to only get 1 billion naira every year for the next 5 years. How long will it take to expand that thing?
You need more than that.
So imagine you allow those lines to be privatized, and you take this major private company, you take that with government partnership, right? And they build it, they crowd that money into it because they are willing the power from the 12,000 that is available there to the distribution arm of it. So that process frees up that thing. I know it's a strategic asset, but there's a way you can manage a strategic asset also that you won't compromise the security of the country, and you will lead to development of the country. With that alone, we already have enough capacity you generated, but if you can't get it to the end user, we will still face this problem over time. Now, that is one. The fact that you can't fix that part of it's really going to really constrain the development of the country. There's little government can do. The inefficiencies in contracting by the government sector can never, ever, ever lead you to a real positive output and in a faster way. So there's a way you can just stay in your lane, government, create enabling environment. Let guys that can crowd those funding from all the, because I can tell you for free, there's no investment vehicle available that all these PFAs or institutional investors, international and domestic, can really totally crowd that money into it. My fund, essentially, the fund one, is an equity and a debt fund, meaning that we do both equity and debt investment because most PFAs say, oh, I want constant annuity through the form of debt. So we created that vehicle such that you get the upside of, you get the benefit of free cash flow constantly from the debt instrument, and you get the benefit of the upside of equity holders. Because, as I said, we have 2 projects right now. Those once it's fixed, if your PFA is one of our investors, you'll be getting that money too. As you're paying tolls, it's coming back to you through your investments, through your savings. So those are the things, those are ways you can crowd in institutional investors into financing infrastructure assets.
Great stuff. Before I ask how we can invest or how Nigerians can even invest, what are your comments on some of the CBN policies shaped in infrastructure investing landscape in Nigeria? Well, what do you think of it, all of the efforts being made by the Apex Bank?
Thank you. That's a very good question, too, also. Number one, CBN in 2010, they created infrastructure office. In March.
Infraco?
Not Infraco.
That's not Infraco.
No. Okay. I'll get to Infraco.
Okay, please. I want to talk about that.
We'll get to Infraco. So in 2010, March precisely, they created an infrastructure office, and they created a fund called PAIF. PAIF is Power Airways Intervention Fund, where they created a 300 billion fund for funding the airways and power sectors. This helped a lot. They have other funds like the gas commercialization fund that is also currently available at the CBN, where you can tap into it. CBN also, through Infracorp, they seed funded Infracorp through a 1 trillion naira fund in conjunction with NSIA, AFC, and CBN for 1 trillion fund as a seed investment. And they created 4 asset managers. CBN has recognized, or these sponsors have recognized the need to put the infrastructure development in the hands of private sector. So they created Infracorp and appointed 4 asset managers. My company is one of a consortium of the 4 that was appointed. It's called AAA, where we take money from CBN, we invest it, CBN invests that seed funding, they invest in that company, and we use it to build assets, and we give them returns. What do I mean by that? It means that you can easily build sustainable and highly efficient asset faster because it's private sector contracting it, not government contracting process. It's my money. If you are building a house, you will not let the contractor tell you, I'm going tomorrow, I'm coming next. No. You have your money, you finish it, and you do it in time. Those are the things that CBN has done through the InfraCorp investment. And definitely this is a step in the right direction. This is what's obtainable all over the world. If you go to Singapore, Bangladesh, you see things, structures like this where CBN, through government intervention, can crowd in funding to help private sector galvanize the development infrastructure in that space. CBN has been doing its best, but we could do more. They could create more funds like that could be targeted specifically at different, like this road now. HDMI is a major road project that is going around the country.
Project.
So definitely CBN could create, I want to tap into this. Let me give them intervention fund of another 500 billion for this road. And these people can tap into this fund and use it to build this road. The assets are viable. So it can pay itself back. So those are the things that I'm saying, because they are located in highly commercial area.
Yeah.
So why not? We don't need government doing things
interesting
like that.
stuff. So how can ordinary Nigerians invest in infrastructure funds, of course, and foreign portfolios too? How can they come in?
Beautiful, because our fund is geared towards corporate entities. So through your individual PFAs, some of them you can, guys, why are you not invested in Africa Plus or AIPF? That is a push that you can tell them. Because once they do that, the returns for our Fund 1, we are giving them a return of IRR of 25%. So if you, through your investors, through your PFA, you can do that. If you're also a corporate individual, you can come directly to the fund managers and us, and we can also admit you into that fund. We do a due diligence on you. We'll be sure that the source of money is clean, and we do all that before we take in the money and invest in the fund, and that's it.
So considering this private involvement and all that we've highlighted, what is your outlook for Nigeria's infrastructure if we told this line as we wrap up, and what's your message to Nigerians at this time?
Beautiful. Thank you, Nigerians. Number one is Nigeria is going to improve better. We have taken the right step in the right direction first. CBN, through this InfraCorp program, has directed that has channeled the funds through InfraCorp for us to now use this to develop the country. Now, more enabling environment is needed, and more policies like this, like what CBN did through is needed. Government need not to be involved in infrastructure development. Government needs to create the environment. Not one. Government can fund transactions that are not viable by funding the viability gap, meaning a rural area, as I said earlier, that needs roads to be done. Channel the money towards those areas and expand the country and create the access to the farmland that needs to be developed. That is the horizon, and that's the future. And that's what's obtainable everywhere. If you go anywhere in the world, there are big roads and they are tolled. Yeah. And people will pay for service. The power you pay in your house, you have a better pass my neighbor generator that you use. That generator, the cost of that power is about 120.
I totally agree.
About 120 kilowatts hour. So you need to create things that makes it easier for private sector to want to invest even in power. Because if the pricing on power is not adequate enough, it will not be viable. Yeah. And if it's sustainable and it's viable, then it will be regular. And when it's regular, you don't need your better pass my neighbor. You don't need to drill a borehole in your backyard to provide utility for yourself. This can be done. There's a transaction we're supposed to do in Delta State where you build the water works and put water meters in all homes. This is what is obtainable everywhere in the world, in the Western world. We can do the same thing. And you don't need to replicate utilities in your homes for everybody. So I think the right direction is we're getting there, but we're going to get there. So with this push, I believe we're going to be successful.
Interesting conversation with you, Mr. Adeniran Ajakaiye. I will keep a tab on you, to always talk around the issues around this. He is the managing director, Africa Plus Partners, right? I got that right. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Nigeria. We really do appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate